I wear the black for the poor and the beaten down. Living in the hopeless and hungry side of town, I wear it for the prisoner who has long paid for his crime. From Johnny Cash. Today, we're going to talk about Folsom, California. This is down the hill from the town I discussed in the last video, El Dorado Hills. Folsom is located on the American River just downstream from the Folsom Dam, which has been influential in creating an atmosphere of a river town when visiting or living in Folsom. In fact, being near the river helped the town's involvement in the gold rush trade during the California Gold Rush, with not only being bolstered by a transportation route with the river, but the best mining being near the riverbank and in the river valleys, because of the river depositing the sediments from the mountains to the valley. Even though Folsom became a town and a city during the gold rush, the area was originally inhabited by the Maidu Indians, which the settlers slowly displaced to make way for the settlements the miners lived in. And even when Folsom started as a community, there were many communities that were developed nearby that were just as significant in size as Folsom. Mormon Island to the northeast on the American River, now under the waters of Folsom Lake, formed because of the construction of Folsom Dam, completed in 1955, was settled by the Mormon gold miners and boasted a population of 2,500. And Prairie City to the south of Folsom, which housed 2,000 people, were the main examples. The town of Folsom benefited greatly from Joseph Libby Folsom's prospecting of the area for gold on a merchant from San Francisco, William Leidelsdorf's property in 1849. But in fact, the man who led Folsom to shine was Theodore Judah, the man involved with developing the Sacramento Valley Railroad from Sacramento, which built its terminus in Folsom. And this railroad was the first one in the West to be constructed, being incorporated in 1852 and eventually extending from Folsom to Marysville, completed in 1856. Folsom was also the first town in California to get a train turntable. This was a huge boon for this community, essentially causing the gold miners heading up to the foothills to stop in Folsom to take advantage of the most economical and easiest route. Because the American River separates Folsom from the north, bridges were built to connect the northern areas of Sacramento to Folsom, first with the railroad to Marysville, then with an iron bridge in the 1890s, then with the Rainbow Bridge built in the 1910s, and finally the Lake Natoma and Folsom crossings built in the 2000s. All the bridges but the railroad bridge are still standing, even though the iron bridge was dismantled in the 1930s and was only rebuilt in the 2000s as a bridge for the walking-biking trail. The Folsom State Prison northeast of Old Town and known famously by Johnny Cash's song, Folsom Prison Blues, written in 1969, where Cash actually performed for an audience of guards and inmates the year before, was selected in 1868 as the site for the second state prison in California and was completed in 1880. It currently houses 2,664 men and 243 women according to the latest census. The prison was also an interestingly innovative enterprise, with being the first prison in the world to have electric lights and a powerhouse to supply electricity. The powerhouse was powered by the waters from the canal as a result of the construction of the original Folsom Dam, much smaller than the current one. But the prison's powerhouse didn't last long, because a few years later, a much larger powerhouse next to the old town was built. This feat was so great that it was known as the greatest operative electrical plant on the American continent. H.G. Livermore, the pioneer and builder of this powerhouse and also of the original Folsom Dam and Canal, built these as his way of making Folsom a great manufacturing hub for the region. Folsom has interestingly lived up to Livermore's vision, with being an innovative hub for the Sacramento area and ahead of its time, even when it was a small rural town. Folsom even had a wealthy atmosphere, even in the 1860s, with beautiful homes such as the Cohen House built in an area known as Folsom's Nob Hill. Interestingly, these events have set precedents for Folsom's growth, starting in the 1950s with the construction of Folsom Dam, impounding it for Folsom Lake, and providing a hydroelectric plant for the region. And then in the space age, Aerojet opened their base right next to Folsom, employing 20,000 workers at its peak in the 60s, creating a huge boon for the Folsom economy. Then, in 1983, Intel opened their plant in South Folsom, which now employs over 6,000 people, solidifying its notion as being a tech hub for the region, with companies such as Micron and the California ISO following suit. This also caused a major explosion in population growth and services, such as the Folsom Outlet Mall to the southwest, the East Bidwell retail strip, which includes everything from old centers from the 1960s to the new and modern Palladio at Broadstone outdoor mall, and the large auto mall with many car dealerships near the outlet mall. This growth has caused development to edge up to Highway 50 and is now heading south of 50, the White Rock Road, leading Highway 50 from completely bypassing the town like I-40 did to Route 66 towns to being an inner city freeway today. Folsom also has a surprisingly strong recreation and culture scene, with having the Folsom City Zoo, the Harris Center for the Arts, where many plays and shows perform at, and has the yearly Folsom Rodeo, which I was able to attend for the first time this year. Yeehaw! Folsom is special in my own life because it is the closest city to where I live, and is the closest place to experience many of the large city amenities that El Dorado County lacks. Major big box stores, mall stores, arts and culture, employment opportunities, entertainment options, and major events. As a result, most weeks in my life have involved a trip to Folsom for those things. It wasn't always like that. In fact, when my parents were children, Folsom was still a small town, similar to how Ione in Amador County is today, with a small main street with the prison being the main anchor of town. Citrus Heights, 10 miles closer to Sacramento, was the main place to visit for those services. And because of Folsom's growth, many of the reasons to Citrus Heights have moved away from Citrus Heights and towards Folsom, especially upscale dining options. This could be partly due to urban sprawl in the Sacramento area, making areas that were once out in the country into wealthy suburbs and exurbs, and what areas were once the wealthy suburbs now being middle to lower class areas in the heart of the city. And I know I have been seeing that growth push more and more into El Dorado County where I live, bringing services and businesses to the county I would have once drove to Folsom for. Who knows what Folsom will be like in 20 to 30 years? Will it become a poorer inner suburb town like Citrus Heights, or Arden Arcade or Rancho Cordova have become? Or will it continue to innovate and keep up with the times as a fun and inviting place to be? I hope you enjoyed watching my video, and thank you for watching.